Aloha kakahi kakako. Welcome and thank you for joining Hawaii Care Choices Healthcare Talk Story. I'm Tish Lopez, your moderator this morning. Happy beautiful Hump Day Wednesday. We are halfway through the week. Just a friendly reminder, today's talk story is being recorded so that you and others can access it in the future. You can visit our YouTube channel simply by searching Hawaii Care Choices. Hawaii Care Choices is also on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Follow us to see a lot of content, upcoming events, get to know our team and supportive community members, and hear our patient stories. If you are following us right now, send Lani and I a comment, a heart, a shaka, thumbs up. We would love to see you and connect with you all. Today and on every talk story, we are utilizing Zoom webinar. So the bottom of your screen should look like this. Please use the green arrow to say aloha to everyone and let us know where you're joining in from. Today's healthcare talk story will be diving into the topic that's not always openly talked about in our community, and that's trauma, grief, and loss. We will hear a few tips from our guest speaker when facing a season of bereavement. You may ask questions throughout this entire presentation by following that purple arrow, clicking on the Q&A box at any time to submit your questions. To those watching us on Facebook Live, thank you so much for joining us and aloha. Please use your comment box to say aloha to us and let us know where you're joining in from. Feel free to chat in questions as well as share your reactions with us during the talk story using those reaction buttons. We love to see the hearts, thumbs up, and even the care button. Also, feel free to join this live video, share this live video to your friends or someone you may know. We are also doing polls today. So for those of you watching on Facebook Live, you will not be able to see the polls pop up. We still want to hear from you using that comment box. Everyone is welcome to join in the fully engaged Zoom presentation next month. You can email me at lopez@hawaiicarechoices.org, or you can visit our website, www.hawaiicarechoices.org/healthcare talk story. So polling is very simple. You may have done it before. If this is not your first talk story, a brain teaser bell will ring, a question will pop up similar to what you see on the screen here. Please make the selection you think is best next to the orange arrow and submit using that green arrow below. Just to kick things off and get you comfortable, here is an icebreaker. So up on your screen is the question, have you heard of Celebration of Life? Yes, no, I attended last year, or I'd like to hear more information. Feel free to go ahead, put that right in there and click submit. Again, for those on Facebook Live, I do see you. Mahalo again for joining us. Put your answers right there in the comment box. Have you heard of Celebration of Life? All right, I am going to end the poll right there and share the results. So 64% of you said yes, 9% attended last year, and 20% would like more information. I'm going to stop the polling right there and thank you all. Polling is just that simple. So that was so great. Oh, hey, Kalamaya, I'm also the IT person. So let me advance my slide on my other computer. So that was super easy with the polling. And at this time, I'd like to take a short commercial break from our usual talk story and let you know that you are all welcome to the Celebration of Life Memorial Day weekend, Sunday, May 28th from 3:30 to 7:30. This is the largest lantern floating event on the island, and you do not want to miss it. Join us for live music, food trucks, fun dancing, fresh undagi donuts. Free parking is at the Civic Auditorium with continuous shuttles to the event provided by HCEOC. Rest assured, your cars will also be safe by multiple community police officers on bike patrolling the area the entire time. The event culminates to the lantern floating ceremony at sunset, releasing these beautifully decorated lanterns in honor of those who we have loved and lost. If you want to get your luminary, you can get it this weekend, Saturday, May 13th at either Safeway in Hilo, KTA, Poainako, or Malama Market in Pohoa, all from 10 to 2 p.m. Or you can visit us Sunday, May 14th at Hilo Walmart to grab your luminary, and that is also from 10 to 2. There is a limited supply, so you do not want to wait. All right, mahalo for that short commercial break, and we are back to our regular scheduled talk story. Please help me welcome our guest speakers for today. First, I'd like to introduce Lonnie Weigert, Engagement Marketing Manager at Hawaii Care Choices, also the creator and host of Healthcare Talk Story. For the past 7 years, Lonnie has been striving to raise the awareness about palliative, hospice, and bereavement care as a personal promise she has made to her mom after experiencing the quality and compassionate care of hospice. Please give a warm virtual welcome to Lani. Aloha, Lani.
Aloha. Aloha, everyone. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Our special guest this morning is Chaplain Renee Godoy, who is an ordained minister with the Assemblies of God since 1993. She served as a senior pastor of Glad Tidings Church for 11 years. She has been the police chaplain for 16 years and is the coordinator of their chaplaincy program and a member of their peer unit. She has also served as a fire chaplain with the fire department for the past 7 years and is a member of their peer unit as well. In 2020, she started Friends of First Responders, a nonprofit that is committed to the health and wellness of first responders and their family on the Big Island. Chaplain Renee is also a widow that served as a caregiver for her husband of 17 years after suffering a stroke in the first year of their marriage before his passing in 1993. She is also the stepmother of Edward Rodney Jr., who has passed at Pohai Malama Care Center on New Year's Day in 2017, and to Dean Jared Godoy, who resides with Hilo and his family, in Hilo with his family, excuse me. She is also the mother of Jamie Ray, who was born prematurely and passed away after 12 hours at Kapiolani Medical Center in 1976. And mother to Erica Suarez, who is married to firefighter Keone Suarez. She now resides with them and their 4 children, twins Kanoa and Kahea, who are 8, Kaniala, who is 7, and Eden, who is 5. Her passions are being a nana and sharing the love of God with the hurting and serving first responders and their families that have been negatively impacted by critical incidents. Please give a warm virtual welcome for Chaplain Renee. Aloha, and I want to just also give you a virtual hug. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to be here.
I'm so excited that we get to talk about this morning. Lonnie will talk story about palliative care, and we will hear from Chaplain Renee about the one thing that helps during a season of grief and loss. All right, so Chaplain Renee, I just like to start by asking, please tell us a little bit more about what you do in our community, where you do it, how you do it.
Well, I work from my office, which is here, which is my home. Everything I do, it's all volunteer work. So mainly with first responders, I do a lot of work with fire and the police department. And we reach out to other like public safety agencies as well, DLNR, and but mainly, most of the connection was with police and fire. In helping them when they go through critical incidents, when there's an officer involved shooting, there's some kind of incident that's above and beyond, but also with fire, and we do assist with them and with victims if asked. So sometimes they ask us to come up and help with the victims. The nonprofit has really enabled us to now receive funds. So with the funds, we're able to do so much more, and broadening our volunteer base, and just creating more awareness about the struggles that first responders and their families face because of their career choice.
I am so thankful that you have, identified this need in the community and that there is help and support. And you mentioned, Hawaii Care Choices often talks about grief, but you also deal with trauma. Can you tell me a little bit on how they're different and maybe how they affect us?
Yeah, and there's a chart here that's showing up on the screen that I went to a training and they put this chart out. It was so eye-opening. I use it in every training I do now. But I usually start off saying, giving this definition of trauma. And when I say it, people get it right away. So grief is grandma died, but trauma is grandma was murdered. So, instantly when you say that, the impact, it hits you. You immediately get that trauma is going to be much more difficult to deal with, much more emotional, probably take longer to heal. But this chart talks about a lot of the differences. So I'm just going to use a chart that's up on the screen now. So with grief, there's a generalized reaction of sadness, but with trauma, it's terror. With grief, the reactions stand alone, but with trauma, they have trauma reactions and grief reactions. So grief, now this third thing has really changed since this chart came out, because used to be that trauma was, really unknown, rarely known among public and professionals. But now you hear so much about trauma-informed care. You hear it over and over. So I think that it's becoming more and more known than it was before. So it's not so much true that it's unknown now. There's a real knowledge of that now. This is important. Grief, most people can talk about it. Trauma is, they don't want to talk about it. So this explains grandpa, who was a veteran from the Vietnam War, and he never talks about it. Never, ever talks about it. Because, and with a sexual assault victims, they don't want to talk about it. It's so, there's so much shame, there's so much pain, involved. And so that's a really significant when when someone doesn't want to talk about something, it could be that it's beyond the threshold of grief and it's extended into trauma. Grief, there's a pain acknowledgement of loss, but in trauma, it triggers tremendous terror and an overwhelming sense of powerlessness and loss of safety. So that's this page. If you can put on the other page, there's a lot of good things on that. There's a 2-page chart. Do you have that, Tish, or do you have only one?
I have the 2 pages. I apologize. I just have this one.
No, I have it in front of me, so I'll read it. I have it here. So so on the second page, it talks about, and this is really important. You and I were talking about this earlier. In grief, the anger is generally not destructive, but with trauma, the anger becomes assaultive. So this explains why sometimes, somebody comes back for a tour of duty, there's domestic violence. This explains a child maybe suddenly having bullying behavior because he saw, dad stab mom, or, and I think this is really important for people to know, because then your understanding is, it's not so much, I like the best definition of PTSD. It's not about what's wrong with you. It's about what happened to you. And so when you look at that anger, maybe you're a teacher at school and you have this child that is becoming, bullying and fighting and angry. You might want to ask yourself, what's going on? What's happened? And you might find trauma in the life of that child. And I think knowing that is very important, because how we respond to it will be really different. So with also it said, the guilt in grief says, I wish I would or would not have done such and such. But with trauma, the guilt says, it's my fault. I could have prevented it. It should have been me instead. That explains like survivor's guilt. In grief, grief does not attack nor disfigure the self-image. This is another important point, I think. With trauma, it attacks, distorts, and disfigures self-image. And in particular, I see with people that have been sexually assaulted, they feel worthless, they feel cheap, they feel dirty. And long after, even though they're the victim, this kind of distortion of self-image stays with them. And it's important to know, because you can get really tired and impatient with someone with this. But when you understand that it's part of trauma, I think you respond differently. Grief, the dreams tend to be of the deceased person, but in trauma, dreams are about themselves as a potential victim. And we're talking about nightmares. We're not talking about dreams. We're talking about nightmares. The next one is really important. Grief does not involve trauma reactions such as flashbacks, startle reactions, hypervigilance, and numbing. But trauma involves all the grief reactions and the trauma reactions. And one that is really important to note is flashbacks and how the brain processes trauma. Because in a sad memory with grief, we look back, we think about it, it feels sad, but we know it's in the past. But trauma, when you're having a flashback, it's like the brain, it's like it's happening to them now again. And this explains, when you watch and they say, oh, they took the victim to the crime scene, they started shaking, they started sweating, they started, a veteran hears a loud noise and they jump up and they're, a flashback is like it's happening to the person in the moment all over again. And so those are some important differences, I think, between grief and trauma.
Wow, thank you so much for sharing that. It's really, similar but different in their own ways too, right? So thank you so much for clarifying that for us. I am going to give the virtual microphone over to Lonnie Weigert and switch gears just a little bit, talking about palliative care. Aloha, Lonnie.
Aloha. Oh gosh, Renee, that is such powerful information that you're sharing with us. And the fact that I'm going to share about palliative care, what happens is when people are going through grief and particularly trauma, they tend to turn off all of these other needs that they may have. And it's important to stay conscious of both if people are even aware that that is happening. And also with the trauma and grief, it affects to the degree of how somebody feels. Like they may actually feel a lot worse and not even realize it, or on the absolute reverse side is they may be so in shock that they are numb to the entire
Yes.
process. So a lot of times when they're not feeling well, they might not even realize it. So that's why it's important to know that palliative care is something that people can get very early on in their disease process. And it's specialized care. It's like going to see a cardiologist or something. It's very specialized care with regard to focusing on the relief that it can provide a patient when they're going through a serious illness, such as COPD, cancer, CHF, or any lung or kidney disease. So it's important to have palliative care because it immediately and directly affects the quality of life for someone dealing with that. And it does also affect the family as well. So it's good to try to get signed up as early as someone is able to, as well as the fact that it is open to people of all ages, even young children. So that's very important as well. Now, continuing on the benefits of palliative care. First of all, to palliate, most people don't even use the word palliative, but I want you to know that to palliate means to ease, to alleviate, to soothe. And it really helps people who are going through specific types of treatments because they are living with a serious illness. Treatments such as dialysis or radiation or chemotherapy, oftentimes there's symptoms that come with all of that. And those symptoms are very, very uncomfortable. And if somebody doesn't even know about palliative care, and that's the reason why I'm bringing it up, because it's not always top of mind for a lot of the physicians as they continue to care for their patients. Oftentimes it's somebody that comes in and says, oh, I heard this about palliative care. Is that something that my mom could qualify for? It's that working together and taking responsibility for your own health care or the health care of your family that makes all the difference in the world. And so that's why when somebody comes in and they ask a doctor, do you know about palliative care? Oh, that's when we're all working together as a team. And that's really what our hope and goal is right now. For the most part, palliative care, when we're coming to the home, because that's where our team provides it, it is consultative in nature, meaning we're not coming and doing any type of wound care or any of that type of hands-on type of care. We're coming in to largely educate the patient and the family so that when somebody has this information, just like how Renee is sharing with us today, once you have the information, it really does reduce the anxiety and fear that naturally comes with serious illness. And so when we educate people, it's so that they can take better care of themselves and their loved ones at home instead of heading straight up to urgent care or the emergency room with very costly and inconvenient care that might happen when you don't even need that if you understand what is happening at home by having palliative care early. So it's all about the education that will help really ease a lot of that. And here we are. Back to you, Tish.
There's the bell. Thank you so much, Alani, for that. It is time for our first brain teaser up on your screen. It says early patient sign up ensures more support and quality of life for all. True or false? No right or wrong answers. Just go ahead and click the selection you think is best. For those of you on Facebook Live, you will not be able to see the polls pop up, but we want to hear from you. True or false, early patient sign up ensures more support and quality of life for all. Feel free to put that right there in the comment box. I'm going to end the poll right there and share our results. So 100% of you said yes, it is absolutely true. Thank you so much for participating in our polls. I'm going to take it right over back to you, Lani.
Okay. So a lot of times with regard to palliative care, we are serving these specific illnesses when we are out there going to the homes. So these are the specific ones: cancer, congestive heart failure, COPD, kidney, liver, and lung disease as well. So it's really, we're focusing very much on the quality of life. And the reason that we're doing that is because previous to palliative care, if people were living with any of these diagnoses, and they were uncomfortable, they just had to live with it. So if they had chronic pain or they were nauseated or they couldn't sleep or whatever it was, they just had to deal with it year after year, because a lot of times people can live with these serious illnesses for months, if not years. And now there's palliative care to come in and make people so much more comfortable. And it really does help with regard to managing those pain symptoms or anything that brings discomfort, particularly for the patient and the caregiver, because a lot of times the caregivers are so frustrated and fatigued that they really do need support, and oftentimes they do not get it.
I'd like to ask Pastor Renee, palliative care is a newer form of care that we're kind of talking about. In the past, have you ever been in a situation where having palliative care might be helpful for a loved one that you may have been caring for?
Definitely. I was so excited to hear that you were offering that. It really fills a big gap. And, right now, sometimes you can't even get into a physician, or you can't get to the emergency, you can't. So this is really providing, such a great need. And what my husband had congestive heart failure, and I could have used those services. You feel kind of alone when they're having difficulty breathing or experiencing some kind of thing that you're not a nurse, you don't feel equipped to deal with. They don't want to go to the hospital. You don't feel qualified. To have some advice and to have people that can connect you with the resources in the community is such a big help. I think I was really excited to learn that you had started this program. I just know so many people, it not only helps the patient, it really helps the caregiver, because the anxiety, if you don't have medical training, the anxiety you experience when your loved one is going into distress is so great. Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing that. Back to you, Lani.
Thank you so much, Renee. That is so true. And what happens with regard to those who don't have palliative care? And like you said, Renee, it's really a stopgap. Palliative care does fill in where a lot of care and anxiety really starts to come in. It's because we don't understand, like, how can we help our loved one? And so oftentimes people will just immediately go to urgent care or the emergency room. And if any of you have gone to the emergency room, that wait is just horrible, first of all. And then finally you get in there and then you get whatever care is needed, and then you go home and find out that the bill is just so exorbitant, when all you needed was that education to really help ease that anxiety and just take care of your loved one at home. And so palliative care really does help, because first of all, we come in and we want to know what is the life goals of the patient. And the reason I tell you this is, we had a speaker that came on our talk story, and she was sharing her personal story, which was that at 21, she was diagnosed with cervical cancer, and she was an avid cyclist. She had just gotten married. She was going to school to become a doctor, and then she was diagnosed with this. She does admit that once she got the diagnosis, she really didn't hear anything else the doctor said. She is so filled with shock and fear at that point that even her newlywed husband, he had no idea what does that mean to be a caregiver. And I mean, I'm barely learning how to be a newlywed. And so she shared that she happened to come across a social worker who was focusing and specializing in palliative care. And she was so very grateful, because the first thing that she was asked was, what are your life goals? And only at that point did somebody even ask her, because when a physician is focusing on a very serious illness such as cancer, their focus is going to be on the cure. And that, I mean, that is wonderful. But without the tag team and combination of having palliative care, it's very one-sided, meaning she was told, okay, we're going to schedule you for your operation. We'll go ahead and cut that tumor out. That'll be next week. When she got home, she thought, I'm really afraid, and I don't know, should I be doing that? I'm only 21. She hadn't had any babies or any, she really still wanted to ride her bike and all of that. And when the palliative care social worker asked her, can you share with me your life goals? Then it all came out that these are certain things that were very important to her. And had she not brought it out, they would not have asked the doctor if there were any other treatments available. And had she just went ahead and had that surgery, she would never ride her bike or be in cycling marathons again. And they weren't really sure if she was either even going to have babies after that as well. So you can imagine how her entire life would have changed at such a drastic level. And that's because she was lucky enough, and this is her telling us, she was lucky enough to come across palliative care. So know that this is very specialized type of care, but it is available to those who are living with these serious illnesses. So do not hesitate to ask your primary care physician for palliative care.
Absolutely. Do not hesitate. Thanks, Lonnie. Renee, as a previous caregiver for your husband, could you please share maybe one thing that helps for someone who is currently a caregiver?
Yeah, I think the number one piece of advice, maybe it's two, but is don't be so hard on yourself. I mean, caregivers are so hard on themselves. I have journals, from when I was caregiving, and I read them and I think, wow, I was so hard on myself, what I expected of myself, when you're not getting sufficient sleep, when every area of your life is under stress, you don't have money, I couldn't work, finances, I'm caregiving, there's not resources. We had a little girl. I mean, you're not sleeping, well, and you're just, to expect yourself to be, pleasant and cheerful and, saintly 24 hours a day, 24/7, 365 is not realistic. You get impatient, you yell, you fight, you're not a saint. I mean, people thought I was a saint. When I went to church on Sunday, I looked like a saint. And I could for an hour and a half, but the rest of the week, it's, you're dealing with real life, and yeah, so be easy on yourself, your expectation of yourself, and also, self-care. You have to take care of yourself to the best of your ability, because your care, you cannot care for anyone else if you're not healthy and strong. And so it sounds selfish, but it's not. You have to take care of yourself so you can take care of the people that you love. So, whatever you need to do to get that self-care, it's not selfish. You really need to do that.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I know a lot of times the focus is put on the patient, and even as caregivers, the focus is put on the patient and what their needs are. But you're right; it's not selfish to look at you as the caregiver, who is also very important and also very valuable in that situation. And gosh, a lot of times we talk on here, the caregiver, if they don't take care of themselves, can become sick, if not sicker than the patient after, a lot of time. So I appreciate you being so transparent as well, to sharing. We don't always have to be pleasant, right? We're real people with real emotions, and it's a real tough situation, and that we've identified that. Thank you so much for that. One thing that helps for our caregivers. I'm going to go ahead, give it back over to Lonnie, for a resource in our community.
Thank you, Tish. So these are our great friends from Community First Hawaii. Oh, they do such a fabulous job. If there is somebody that is not currently on any of our services, just know that these fine folks do an incredible advanced health care directive workshops. And, some of them can even be done over Zoom. But what's beautiful about this is you go to this and you actually come out with a completed advanced healthcare directive. So, and it's free on top of that. And it's really a wonderful service that they do for the community at large. The only requirement is that you be 18 years old or older. And this is truly one of the greatest gifts that you could give to your loved ones, because should there come a time where you're unable to speak for yourself, at least you would have this wonderful paper that will already tell your loved ones what your wishes are. And then there's no fighting over the bedside on, no, mom would want this, or no, she would want that. So please go ahead and take advantage of this and let them know Lonnie sent you.
Thanks so much, Lonnie. I've also posted that register online in the chat for any of you that need it. Back to you, Lonnie.
And so, as the normal progression of the disease continues, sometimes it becomes clear that it's time for the highest level of care. And there is nothing better than hospice, because that is the Cadillac of all services. And I want you to know that oftentimes people would say, hospice, oh, no, I don't need hospice. I'm going to live longer, and I'm not going to give up. Why would I give up and choose hospice? Know that hospice is a specific type of care too, and it's called medically directed comfort care. So no, nobody's giving up. We want to now be comfortable, and that is a wonderful choice. That is a wonderful choice for so many. The other thing too is, it's just like Renee was saying about when you're a caregiver, oftentimes, a caregiver becomes so fatigued and tired, even forgets to eat and all of that. But when hospice comes in and provides the additional support, then the person can actually be a wife or be a daughter or be a son. And those are just cherished moments. And it's because culturally we're raised to, no, you take care of your own. No, we're not going to call people into the home. You have to take care. And well, that's when we didn't have as much information as we have now. And I want you to know that we are getting smarter by the day, folks. So please do not hesitate to call, especially when you notice that, your loved one maybe is not eating as much, or maybe they're sleeping a lot more. They definitely are not driving. And, light housework, such as doing, a load of laundry or stuff like, or even making themselves a sandwich is not even possible please call us, because I want you to know that early sign up is key. And what's wonderful about that is there's nothing to lose on that. You call and maybe your loved one doesn't need services yet. Oh, that's totally win. Or you call and your loved one does need services. Oh, you were ahead of the game and we're already going in to help your loved one. So this is why, do not hesitate when it comes time to find out whether or not your loved one or somebody that is going to qualify for the Cadillac of services, because it is such a beautiful thing. Also, people will ask me, well, if I come in, what are the other things that are included in hospice care? Well, first of all, we try our best to just keep the patient comfortable. And all of these wonderful benefits are included, such as all the medical equipment, the hospital bed, the oxygen. Let me tell you, it's very expensive if you have to pay and rent all of those on your own. Also, all the medications that are connected with the illness that the patient was diagnosed with to come into hospice. And then there's a wonderful, wonderful, compassionate team that comes to the home and really sees to the needs of not only the patient, but the whole family. And that's why I say that early admission is key, because if we get a loved one like 5 days before they pass, I tell you, we'll probably be able to get them comfortable, but there won't be anything we can do for the family with regard to getting them ready, getting them tolerant, getting them ready to really deal with the loss of their loved one. And anybody that's having any anticipatory grief, there'll be very little time for us to come in there and really help the family. So oftentimes when a physician will be talking to a patient and the patient says, no, I don't need hospice, I got my wife. Yeah, so then we ask, well, how will you do if something happens to your wife? Oh, okay, no, let's sign up now. Let's sign up for hospice, because that's the thing, is the amount of support that hospice will provide for the family is unprecedented. And it's no reason to wait when you can come in quite early and receive those services. And back to you, Tish.
Thank you so much, Lonnie. Yes, another brain teaser is up on your screen. How is palliative care and hospice care the same? Both relieve suffering, both can be delivered in patients' homes, both improve the quality of life for patients and their families, or all of the above. For those of you watching on Facebook Live, remember we are not able to see the polls pop up, but we still want to hear from you using that comment box. We love that you are joining on Facebook Live and continue to do so. But if you ever want to join in on Zoom, please visit our website, www.hawaiicarechoices.org/healthcare talk story. All right, I'm going to end the poll right there and share the results. 100% of you said all of the above. Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing, or excuse me, participating in our brain teaser. I am going to switch this over as I'm IT support as well. So here we go. Okay, back to you, Lonnie.
Okay, thanks, Tish. Thanks. So I want everybody to know palliative care, for the most part, is covered under your universal insurance. And some of you might have Medicare and Medicaid. And if that happens, there is no copay. But if there is a copay, it's normally the same amount as when you go and see any of the specialist type of doctors, the cardiologists, etc. And then Kaiser and the VA provide their own palliative care services at this time. However, for hospice care, everybody is covered under all the insurances. So hospice care at home is 100% covered. And why wouldn't anybody take that? Because for the most part, nobody has to pay anything to have the Cadillac of care at home. So anybody that has Medicare, Medicaid, and all of the other universal insurances, hospice care at home is covered 100%.
Thank you so much, Lonnie, for talking story with us about palliative and hospice care and how it can help. Like Lonnie said, our goal is that you get the right care at the right time. So you can call your physician, you can ask about palliative or hospice care, or you can call us directly. Number on the screen, 969-1733. We are available Monday through Friday, 8:30 to 4. You can also email us at care@hawaiicarechoices.org or visit our website for more information, hawaiicarechoices.org. Like Lonnie said, call earlier if your loved one is not needing this service quite yet. You are still ahead of the game, and it will be great. And if they do, they will get so much support, and you as a caregiver will get the support as well. So thank you, Lonnie, for sharing that. I want to go ahead and switch gears just a little more and talk about bereavement care with Laura Dvorak, who is unable to be here at our talk story today, but I am happy to share all of the wonderful resources that she has available to you or your loved ones if you need it. So hospice and community bereavement is available. We have one-on-one counseling services. And if you need more support, there is referrals to long-term support. Laura will pair you with the right therapist or counselor for you should you need to continue that support. She also does group counseling for adults, teens, keikis, special focus groups, holiday sessions, walking sessions, and even more. So again, if you follow us on social media, you will always see those pop up as one of those opportunities to join and just be supportive. We also have camps such as Camp Pohai Maluhia for the Keiki. We have Ohana Nights, which there is an Ohana Night happening tomorrow at 5:30. So if you haven't been able to join and you need support and you've recently lost a loved one, please reach out. You can call that number 969-1733. I'll put it up in a little bit, and ask for Laura and join in on that. It is a really amazing time that everybody gets together, and there's free dinner as well. We have community events such as the Celebration of Life that we mentioned earlier, Season of Light, and memorial services. She also does presentations, trainings, school visits, and professional education for anyone looking to connect with resources. She is also networking all the time, which is actually what she's doing right now. So she couldn't make it today, but in the Bereavement Network of Hawaii. So we're so thankful to have Laura on at Hawaii Care Choices and the services and resources that she provides to our community. This is the next opportunity to connect that she is doing, Walking Through Grief. It's a support group with movement, nature-based, and mindfulness practices. It is every Tuesday from 4:30 to 6:30, starting June 6th through July 18th. She did mention there is no meeting on 4th of July. So you guys all can enjoy that holiday. If you want to register, again, that number is 969-1733, or you can email bereavement@hawaiicarechoices.org and let Laura know you heard it right here on Healthcare Talk Story. Again, if you want to hear more information about our bereavement programs or what we have, you can always visit our website at hawaiicarechoices.org. There is a small bereavement tab, or excuse me, services tab, and then bereavement. So please go ahead and check that out or share it with someone that you know might need it. Thank you. Renee, I was just looking at this quote right here, and it says, just because you carry it well doesn't mean it isn't heavy. And I just think with all of the ways that you help in our community in regards to grief and trauma and loss, could you share with us maybe one thing that helps for someone who has lost a loved one and is grieving right now?
Yeah, and I like that quote a lot too. I was just thinking when you said that, wow, I like that quote. Because people look well and sometimes they're not well, but they can look well. I liked when I think I was reading your intro into this or something, and it talked about a season. And I think that's what grief is, but it's not just one season. It's like the other seasons, they tend to cycle around. So, you go through a season that's, it's really difficult. Then you go through a season where you're feeling so much better. and you think you recovered, and then you get hit with another season, And so I think it helps to know that it is a season, and there are triggers, and I think the best piece of advice I could give anybody is don't think you can control the grief.
Mhm.
It's going to control your life for a while. And if you can accept that and roll with it, and I liken it to when you're in labor. And when you're in labor, they tell you, don't fight the labor pains, don't tense up, just breathe and kind of roll with it. Because when you tense up, you make it worse, And I remember when I was in labor, my first pregnancy, and I tensed up and I did everything. And then at one point I said, you're going to be the only person that dies in labor. You need to stop, you need to stop. This is not, you need to do what they tell you. Take deep breaths and stop, because you're making it worse, much harder than it has to be. And so with grieving, if you accept that it's going to control your life for a little while, and just roll with that. You're going to cry at unexpected places. It will be embarrassing in front of people that you don't want to break down and cry in front of. I mean, things are going to happen. And if you learn to just flow with it, and if you're able to, like I had a job that I was able to. So when I would have what I would call my crying fits, I would have those days. I just say, I'm having a crying fit, and I would go home and I would lock myself in my room. I would play sad music. I would pull out family albums. I would look through pictures and cry my heart out. And the next day I felt better. But if you try to suck it up and hold it in and suppress it, it doesn't go away. So just know that you can't control grieving. It controls you. And, to just kind of flow with that. And, it's like, but I tell people too, it's like when you're in labor. But grieving is like labor in reverse. So when you're laboring to have a child, those pains come more intense and more quickly the closer you get to delivery. Well, in grief, your pain is intense and close together, and then it lessens. So it's the reverse of the labor process. That in time, it may never go away, but the intensity of the pain and the frequency and the length of the contractions, if you want to call them, start to lessen over time. And that's, I think, the best description I can think of what it's like. But, just be easy on yourself, and you're going to be embarrassed. You're going to cry in front of people you don't want to cry in front of. You're going to break that. You're going to feel like an idiot, but you're grieving.
I like when you said that it's seasons, right? So sometimes it's going to be a season with a lot of those crying fits. And then maybe you kind of get it to where you can, all right, I'm in the grocery store and I'm going to get through this check line and cry in the car. And, as kind of the grief goes on in your journey. And I like what you said in the reverse labor, because the farther away you kind of get from that first day that loved one has passed, it changes over the years. So can you tell me a little bit more about how you see grief changing over the years from, months to years to multiple years?
It changes as we change. And if we, like, let's say you experience a loss as a child, you don't have the, you don't have the life experience, you don't have the vocabulary, you don't have the analytical ability and the maturity to really process that at that time. So a child, when they become an adult, might get hit harder. Like, let's say you lost your mom, you were a kid. When you have your first child, that grief's going to hit you fresh, because you're going to identify now, with your mother and how hard it must have been for her. And, so as you mature, like, even for myself, there were things that I couldn't fully understand and appreciate about what my husband was going through until I got older. And then you look back, and then you tend to have another set of grief, because now you are able to really comprehend what that was like and understand. And also, when you're caregiving, you don't have the luxury of grieving. You don't, you can't, you want to, but you have to put one foot in front of the other. You have to get up, you have to prepare meals, you have to give medications, and get up and do it again and do it again and do it again. Your loved one is dealing with their own emotions. You can't lose it. So when they leave, the grief really hits you. It all comes at you at once. And it changes over time. And some grief is more complicated than others. And so I think it's important to know that you don't just grieve once and for all. I think, and every grief is different. I lost my husband after lengthy illness. I lost a baby after only 12 hours. I lost my mother after I cared for her. My stepson, that really had a wonderful experience at the hospice facility, which I was so disappointed it closed. And also shout out to Brenda Ho. I just think she's an amazing person that has been the driving force behind hospice for decades. God bless her for her passion, for her recognizing the awesome need and benefit of this program in our community and sacrificing so much of her time and energy to move it forward. But each grief was different. Each grief was different. Your relationship is different. So it's very different.
I completely agree. As I, grow and go through my own experiences, I can agree with you. It's all different. And I was just looking for Brenda. She was on here listening, but I guess she had to go right to our next meeting. But yes, definitely shout out to her. I'd like to just say too, with our Pohai Malama facility, I've had experiences in there, and we are, or I should say, Brenda is working very hard to identify the need that is in our community to reuse that facility again. So crossing fingers, we'll be able to share some new things coming in the ending of the year. So thank you so much, Pastor Renee. Is in your experiences going through, this grief and these losses from, your husband to your mom to your baby, have you gotten grief support? Have you reached out to others?
Looking back at the time, I don't know, but I do want to, I did. And I want to say that, there's effective support and then there's well-meaning support. There's the people that mean well and say the worst things, and you just don't know how to support you. And usually they've not had a loss like yours. So they can't, they mean well and try to provide support. And then, there's those people that, you almost join the club, when you're a widow, you join a club. And every, and the widows who have gone before, they look at you knowingly, like, we know what you're going to go through. Those people reach out to you, they become your tribe. Church was a big thing for me. My faith in God was huge. A lot of support, and some of it all well-meaning, but some better than others. Yeah. Now in the work that I do with chaplaincy, and because I train peer units, and I'm aware that we need to debrief, we need to process. So now, because of my understanding of that, I do that. I seek it out. I make sure I get it more than I've ever done it any other time in my life.
Wow. Well, thank you. And I know what you mean. There's well-meaning help that is out there too. So yes, but if anyone, needs help, they can feel free to call us. We do have professionals that can help you if you would need it. So again, our hope is that you get the right care at the right time. Please give us a call or email us. Thank you so much, Renee, for your valued time and just helpful perspectives that have been shared here, being open, being transparent, talking about something that we a lot of times internalize and we don't talk to a lot of people about it. So thank you so much for coming on here. Mahalo Lani for and our audience for listening in on palliative and hospice care, today's talk story. I hope you all can take home one thing that helps from today's presentation. Again, any specific question, if you have specific questions about you or your loved one's situation, please reach out to us. We have a wonderful, wonderful team standing by that will help you answer specific questions about you or your loved one's situation. Again, 969-1733, email. There's the website if you want to get more information as well, because like I said, our goal is that you receive the right care at the right time. So at this time, I would just like to let everyone know that there will be a quick survey that will pop up on your screen. Please make the selection you think is best. There are 6 questions. If you can answer all 6 and then click the submit button below. It is completely anonymous. It will not be shared. We would just love to get your feedback on presentations like these because it allows us to gain a better understanding. Lonnie and I go through them. We look at them. We take everything that you guys have said into consideration, and we put it out there for you guys. So we want to hear from you. For those of you on Facebook, thank you so much for watching us live. Please send us your thumbs up, your hearts, if you enjoyed this presentation. All of you are invited to every single talk story each month on the 10th at 10 o'clock. And I believe June will be coming up on Monday, the 12th. So just plugging that in. So it should be coming up on your screen right now. Okay, everyone should be seeing that. Renee, again, thank you so much. Going in and helping our first responders in our community is huge. And I appreciate you giving us, the difference between trauma and grief, and a little bit about what they go through. I also heard that next week is Police and Firefighter Appreciation Week. So everybody that's listening, please join in. Please send them your appreciation. They, in a job like hospice, a lot of times we don't hear the thank yous. And in a job like firemen and police officers, they also don't hear the thank yous as well. So take that opportunity and thank them. Oh gosh, I just appreciate your transparency in creating this space, talking about trauma, talking about grief and loss. We are so thankful that you took time out of your super busy schedule to join us and to give us, all of these tips and just open up about it. We're so, so, so grateful. While they're doing their surveys, I know we got 2 minutes, but I'd like to ask, with our upcoming Celebration of Life event, we have all of these programs and then we open it up as a free event to our community, Celebration of Life, and, everyone decorating their lanterns in honor of their loved one. Could you give us your insight or your, what do you think on how this event or maybe similar event or customs or rituals or symbolism help us through our grief?
Well, I think it's symbolism and traditions are just incredible. They're comforting to people. They also provide a space for people to come together. People just want everyone to know that their loved one is not forgotten. But I think when you float a lantern or you let go a balloon, there's something in it that says they're gone from here, but they're still somewhere, and I think especially like for children, that little symbolism, doing something hands-on, really brings that home. And I think the Lantern of Life is just and you can see by the response of the community how powerful it is for people, because the response in the community is great. So obviously that symbolism and that tradition is very, very helpful to the grieving process.
Thank you. And it's not something that you have to do once a year, right? I mean, you can do it at any time. We just have Celebration of Life as a once a year. We hope that you come to it and create that tradition for your family, but you also can do something at home, right? Find something, put something together so that your loved one is always remembered and always, going, just a way to honor them, right? Yeah. Lonnie, would you like to say any last words as we come on the 11th hour?
No, I think Renee's final words is really important, and they're just so filled with love and compassion. I'm really, really grateful that she joined us and gave all of her manao on the different aspects of the grief, the grieving, the trauma. All of that is just wonderful. And thank you so much, Renee, for joining us. It's so awesome.
Thank you for having me. You know how much I love you guys. You're like top of my list, favorite, charities out there. And the work you do is just incredible for our community. I can't say enough about it.
Well, thank you so much for doing what you do in the same community, just with different people. So, friends, if you feel that you've benefited from this presentation, please let your friends and family know. Every month we're here, 10th at 10 o'clock, Facebook Live or on Zoom. Mahalo again for joining us. Renee, any last words?
Join us for sign waving for police and EMS. We'll have flyers out on Facebook. We have a Facebook group, and let's get out there in force and let them know we support them. And yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, so Facebook, Friends of First Responders, go ahead, follow them, like their page, get your poster out and do sign waving next week.
I'll put my email and phone number in the chat box if anybody wants any information.
Beautiful. Yes, please do. Thank you so much. All right, everyone. I wish you a wonderful Hump Day Wednesday. We'll see you next month for Healthcare Talk Story. Ahui ho, malama pono. Until next time, take care. Aloha. All right, I'm going to leave it up just for a few moments so we can get that email and that right there. I'm going to go and copy and paste it for myself. So if anybody wants to, they can go ahead and message me, message Hawaii Care Choices on Facebook or Instagram as well. So, all right. Thank you so much, Renee. Take care.
Welcome. God bless you.